All right, so for this week's lesson, we're going to be talking about the song When the Saints Go Marching In. Awesome song, and it's a great standalone composition like this. It sounds really good on its own. So I'm going to show you how to play it all note for note, but the real value is going to be learning how to improvise around a melody line that you already know. And that's a very real-world scenario where you'll hear a musician take a lead break, and they play the melody, you know, just to sort of back up what the vocalist was doing, but then they'll take their own sort of spin on it. And so that's what we're going to be talking about, is how do you do that? How do you take a melody like When the Saints Go Marching In and then sort of improvise around that? This came from a site member, and I can't remember your name. I'm sorry. It was a great suggestion, though. And so I thought this would be the perfect song for it. And actually, he suggested this song. So let me talk about this guitar real quick. Somebody's going to ask about it. This is a new one to me. I bought this on Reverb. I don't usually buy guitars from Reverb, but I saw this. I was scrolling through, and I saw that it had, I see this Gibson ES175, that's what this is, 1950, and it has this really bad finish. You know, you can just tell that this thing has been, it looks like it's just been through the ringer. Look, actually looks like it's been drugged behind a car. I couldn't believe the finish on this, and you don't typically see that with Gibson 175s. They were expensive guitars back then, and people took really good care of them. So when you can just go on eBay or go on Reverb or go into Guitar Store, if you see them, they're usually in pretty good shape. And so I was surprised to see this. It sort of stood out because of that. And I like guitars with stories. I've been wanting a 175 for a long time. And I saw this that had this kind of bad finish. First of all, you get a better price, so it's like half price when they look like this. It's had new frets put on it, and it's set up just perfectly. And so it came from Wisconsin. It had sat in an attic for many, many years. I don't know, why that, but I think that's part of the reason. Well, that's probably the reason for the finish looking the way it does. But it's killer. And hey, it's relic, right? That's kind of the cool thing. But that's what this is, 1950 Gibson ES175. One pickup, one P90 pickup. And I love guitars with one pickup. I love the simplicity of it. One volume, one tone. You don't have to sit and try and figure out with a selector switch where you are and stuff. One little tip for those of you that do have a guitar with one pickup, like a neck pickup, you can, if it sounds too bassy when you're playing, you can always pick back here. Hear the difference, how bright it gets versus, right? So I like to just adjust it that way. I know it's not the same as having a pickup there, but I've just kind of gotten used to doing that through the years with an acoustic guitar, picking closer to the bridge. When I'm taking a lead break, I might do that, and then I'll come back here to play my rhythm. So just something to just mention. Okay, so let's talk through this song. Now this song is, let me go through the chords first. I'm playing this in the key of A. And I should also mention I got some spooky guys back here. It's Halloween tomorrow. Some of you are going to watch this video in the future and be like, why the heck is there a skeleton sitting back there? That's why. The other last thing is I'm going to split this lesson into two parts. So in this video, we'll look at the first half. If you want the tablature and access to the on-screen tab viewer, you can get those things by going to activemelody.com, go to the weekly lessons page, and do a search for EP385. Okay, so playing this in the key of A, and we're going to go through the chords. So it's the one chord, which is the A. Kind of hang out on that chord for a while. Then it goes to the 5 chord, which is E. And I'm playing an E7. Back to the 1, A7, D. I throw in the D sharp diminished 7. I'll talk about all this. We go back to the 1, back to the 5, back to the 1. That's the structure. And, okay, so the melody, super simple, right? If I played it straight like that, it's so boring. It needs some spice. You got to spice that up a little bit. That kind of stuff. So that's what we're going to talk about. Is how do you take that melody and then just sort of stray a little bit. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to play the melody straight. So let's just get that down. And oh, the other thing is I'm playing out of chord shapes. There's two shapes that I'm playing out of. The E shape. Now remember, these are both A chords. E shape and the A shape. This is an A chord, this is an A chord, but I'm using the E shape. There's your E chord with these three fingers. And then there's the A chord, obviously down first position. And I'm kind of going back and forth between those shapes. Now I'm not necessarily playing the chords. Well, actually I am in one place, but I'm thinking about where those chords are and what leads I can play out of them. And once you start thinking of the neck this way, it becomes so much easier to improvise. So look at what I'm doing here. All of that is out of that chord, really. So I'm starting on the 7th fret 4th string with my ring finger, middle finger on the 6th fret 3rd string, 7th fret 3rd string. Now I could have went here to the 5th fret 2nd string, but I thought it sounded better to come up here because I can slide into it easier. Now I could have slid into that, I realize that, but I like that sound, and it's just my hand flows better that way. There's no right answer on this. You could do it either way. The other thing is I slid into that first note. Okay, so then I went through in the chords, and that's a down, muted down, up, down, muted down, up. What chord that is, it's an A chord, but I'm playing the A bar chord, but just the 4 strings, top 4 strings. So all together then we have, and then it repeats. The second time I kind of dug into it to give it a little variation. And a lot of variation comes from just sliding into things. That's a big tip. And you can slide into the chords. So I could have done that. There's a lot of value in going down a fret and then sliding into where you're trying to get. Okay, so we have third time I went, came up there again, but then I went. Now that sounds different than the melody, right? That's not the melody, but I'm keeping the same timing. So as long as you keep the same timing, you can stray anywhere you want to go. I could have played a chord there, I could play a blues lick, I could play a major pentatonic lick, I could do whatever I want, but I got to come back at the right place. You got to kind of jump off the train, but then get back on it at the right place. As long as you can do that, then you can improvise in this style. So that's one of the tips in learning how to do this. Now this, let me show you this lick. I've used this quite a bit, and this is a must-know blues lick. So what I'm doing is I'm borrowing the first 3 strings on the 5th fret, playing strings 2 and 3, and then I hammer onto the 6th fret 3rd string. So that's like an A minor chord, A major chord. That's really all that is. Then I'm going to play 7th fret strings 2 and 3, and then back to that same hammer on. And then my ring finger goes down on the 7th fret 4th string. And all of that represents this chord. Remember this, if you don't remember anything else. If I'm playing this chord, I don't have to play that. I could also do this. And it's a really kind of bluesy way to play that same chord. So let's look at an F, for example. There's your F chord, but listen. Right? You hear it? And you hear that in so much gospel and country and blues. It's very useful. It works great fast, works great slow. A lot of value in that. Okay, so I did that, played the blues lick, and then did this. Now I came down to the 4th fret 4th string, hammer onto the 5th fret, and then a pull off. And then my ring finger goes down on the 7th fret 5th string. Now why did I come down to here? Well, I was just trying to play a major note there because the song, the melody is very major. It's not minor. So I came down to the major pentatonic scale, pattern 1 of A. That's the note I played. And then we go to this note, which is the E, and you can tell that's where the E part would be, the 5 chord. Now when I played, the reason I used my ring finger there is I went right into the 5 chord there. So this is the C shape. If you think of the C chord in first position, you play it here with your ring finger on the 7th fret, 5th string, and then you just add your pinky to the 7th fret, 3rd string, playing the middle 4 strings. That's an E7 chord. Just know that's your E note, and then there's your E7 chord if you want to get back to this. Okay. All right, let's take it from the beginning. Now this is where the song would normally go. Right? Very simple. And so I just took that same idea and went. So I knew that there's certain notes that define that part of the melody, and it's this. So this is kind of like building up. It's like a tension, a release once you get to that note that's in the 1 chord. So that means I can create whatever tension I want as long as I land here. So I went. Right? I could have went. It could be bluesy, it could be major. So you might play around with your own versions of fill licks, but I just went. And this is going into that major pentatonic scale pattern 2 for A. So it looks like that, right? And it lives within your chord here, so you can think of it that way too. So we're sliding up to the 6th fret, 3rd string. 5th fret, 7th fret on the 2nd string. Back to the 6th fret, 3rd string. And then we land on that note. 2nd fret, 3rd string. Now I could have, instead of playing it there, I could have played it here. But I wanted to come down here because I had an idea. I wanted to throw in that little bluegrass lick for D. Okay, so we have. Now after that, I went ahead and hit the A chord there, which is just strings 4, 3, and 2 on the 2nd fret. And then came up here to the 5th fret, 2nd string with my pinky. I kept that chord there so that I could hit this note along with the chord. And then that's where the song would go, right? But I played this little D run here. So that's open 1st string, 1st fret, 2nd fret. Back down. And then you land on the 3rd fret, 2nd string. But make sure you use your ring finger to land on that, so that your other fingers can fall in place and allow you to hit the D chord. It's actually not that hard. So if you're having a hard time with that, just practice that run. Down, up, down, up, down, up, and then down on the chord. Okay? And that's where I threw in a D sharp diminished 7 chord. And that's just a typical scenario that you hear in blues. I talk about this quite a bit. When you're going from the 4 chord back to the 1 chord, which we're trying to do here, we're going from the D chord back to the 1. Instead of just going from the 4 to the 1, throw in that transition chord, which would be whatever your 4 chord is, go to the sharp diminished 7 of that chord, which is, in this case, is this. So that's a D7 if you look at those 3 fingers. And then I've just got my index finger on the first fret, 4th string. That's what makes it a D sharp diminished 7. And with these sharp diminished 7 chords, you can move them up 1, 2, 3 frets, 1, 2, 3 frets. It's the same chord repurposed all over the neck. So if you don't like the voicing of it in one place, you could try it in another place. Just throwing that out there. Right? And then I came back here and went back into the melody there. So I'm coming back to the 5th fret, 1st string, down, up, down, 1, 2, 3. And then that's 7th fret, 5th fret on the 2nd string. And then look at this. 6th fret, 3rd string, 7th fret, 4th string. These notes are in the A chord. I'm just tracing the notes out of the chord. So, from your D sharp diminished 7 down to your A chord, and then it goes. And so what I'm doing for that is middle finger on the 3rd fret 2nd string, ring finger on the 4th fret 3rd string. Just those two strings, strings 2 and 3, and then down to strings 2 and 3 on the 2nd fret behind the bar. So you have, and then I threw in a kind of a bluegrassy thing. I don't know, I've got a little bluegrass thrown into this. So that's the 2nd fret to the 4th fret on the 4th string, back to the 2nd fret, 4th fret 5th string, down to your open A string. And that's really the only open string that's used in this whole thing. So if you want, I'm just mentioning that because if you wanted to transpose this and play this in B, you could do that. You just have to kind of work out the differences, but it shouldn't be that hard to do. In fact, that would be a great exercise once you have this one down, or this key down. Okay, and so that's really about as far as we're going to get in this one. You have your D, D sharp diminished 7, down to the melody, right? And then in the second half, we're going to go in and play it an octave higher and show you a whole new set of licks. But the point in this is to take that melody and think of it like a call and response. Your call is that. Your response is whatever you want it to be. I happen to go, but it could be, right? It could be anything. It could be another lick. That threw it into a blues mode there. But you can see that as long as I keep the timing right and then I come back to the melody at some point, it could be farther down the road. Obviously I was straying quite a bit from the melody there. But as long as I come back to it at some point, see, here it is. Right? So you just have to know that you have to get your timing down. And a lot of that comes with just doing in practice and knowing where your chord positions are. If you're just doing this for the first time, kind of just now getting familiar with this, it's going to be hard to do. But you can do it. You're just going to have to slow it down and do something like... Now think about, what do you want to say to that? That's your call. What's your response? You know, and come back to it. And then play something bluesy, right? So it's not all going to sound great, but it's experimenting with it. That's what makes it great and makes you better over time, is learning kind of when to play and what to play. All right, so let me back up. I'll play through this one last time. This first half, I'll play through it slowly, and then we'll see you in part 2 for the second half. And remember, as a premium member, you have access to the tabs and all of the extras. So here we go.